And we're back, brothers and sisters. And right away, you're pressing that button, like the bell, and subscribe if you haven't. If it's your first time, this is the best show on YouTube. On YouTube. On YouTube. Of course, it's the best show on YouTube when I'm able to speak properly. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you. We are the reason. And no, you are the reason why we're doing it. And we are the reason why you keep tuning in. Without further ado, this is the show where today we actually have 3 generations of man. Glenn, how you doing today?
Very good. Yourself, Alex?
Amazing.
By the way, happy St. Patrick's Day.
What does it mean?
Everybody is Irish today, and you know what that means? That means everybody's lucky. There's a pot of gold at everybody's end of their rainbow.
Ramon, what's up?
Hello, nice to be here again.
What kind of Irish are you?
Not really. I haven't celebrated still St. Patrick's Day, so.
So what are you doing here at the studio? Like, seems like all the young people should be somewhere in the Irish bar doing something crazy. You're hanging out with 2 old farts. Well, 1 old fart. No, it's me, Glenn. I'm referring to myself.
No kidding.
A lot to cover today, guys. Let's get straight to the news because we can be sitting here all day. You know, are you still worried about your money in the bank? I would be. Glenn, what do you say?
I warned everybody this was coming. I've been warning people for years. There's going to be a run at a bank near you. This is not going to go away, and they're going to have to keep printing money to try and stop the contagion, the bank spreading, the loans going out, people losing their money, and that's going to be very inflationary.
So Silicon Valley Bank first, right? Then Signature Bank, then a couple of crypto banks, and now Europe.
First Republic, and now it's spreading. The contagion is going over to Europe with Credit Suisse, which is a big one. And they started bailing them out Friday, and already, not Friday, Wednesday. And today on Friday, their shares started going down again. So people don't have faith in the banking system. People want to get their wealth out of the banking system. It's the beginning of the end for the old paradigm.
Oh, anything. Well, right here it says Credit Suisse shares fell by as much as 23.8%. And were last down to 20.2%. Trading in the shares was halted a number of times by the stock exchange operators as volume soared and the stock plummeted. So somebody's artificially trying to keep them afloat above the water, right? You can see that also happening in the here with the major banks, like leading U.S. banks rescuing distressed lenders. 11 financial institutions agreed to inject $30 billion in the First Republic Bank. Does it feel like a Band-Aid still?
It won't take long before it's past 1 trillion, going into 2 trillion. You know, there was a time when just about all banks were considered blue chip. They were solid investments. Now, people are running for the hills. They want to get their money out first.
It says here that the First Republic will receive uninsured deposits from the country's 11 banking majors: Bank of America, Citigroup, J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Bank of New York, Mellon PNC Bank, State Street, Truist, and U.S. Bank. Let me ask you this, Glenn. How does it work when your neighbor is in trouble financially? Do other neighbors chip in and bail them out?
Yes, but this is not the way it's supposed to be. Like the other banks, where are they going to get their liquidity from? It's the central bank. And who's paying for that? It's the people are. We're going to feel it in inflation. So they raise the interest rate to try and put a cap on inflation, you know, to finance wars and scamdemics and stuff like that. And now they're going to have to reverse it just to keep the economic system afloat. Like we said in our last podcast, it's either they have to blow up the monetary system or they have to blow up the economic system. Either way, it's going to be very painful.
And it doesn't really look good for the world, well, Western society in general. Even the allies, right, the regular allies like Saudi Arabia, which always been sort of friend or foe because, you know, Western world buys oil from them, sells them weapons for whatever purposes we can discuss and later on. But and then Saudis, what the Saudis are responsible officially. It's an official narrative of United States. They're officially responsible for 9/11, right? So we have a intricate relationship with Saudis, but now it's changing, right? It's changing for the who God knows who, for what turn it's taking. Glenn, what do you think? Saudi Arabia now could start investing in Iran very quickly.
Big enemies at one time. Now the enemies are working together because of the top dogs, that's Russia and China, bringing the enemies to the table. They're good at fixing problems. Now there's going to be another big problem. There's that little country in the east side of the Mediterranean called Israel, who's going to be surrounded by a lot of hateful, aggressive neighbors. So hopefully, figuring out things, making things smooth will apply to Israel also.
And look at that picture. Look at that picture. Who's making that happen? It looks like China right in between, right in the middle of this intricate relationship now. So the power is definitely swinging eastwards.
A definite challenge to the powers, okay? Looks like they're going down, and there's going to be a lot more groups coming up to challenge the elites. So we're going to have a good world governance at the regional levels.
Well, the role of China is very important right in the world now, because beside being the sweatshop of the world and major manufacturer of goods procured here in the West or replaced, from manufacturing here in the West by Chinese. Now, China was the biggest owner of U.S. debt, right?
Was number 2.
Was number 2? Who was number 1?
Japan.
Sorry.
And number 3 is UK. Number 4, believe it or not, is the small country of Belgium. And number 5, which very few people know, Luxembourg. Okay? That's all set up to try and keep the U.S. hegemony in the monetary system to go longer, because that's not real.
But now China is dumping American debt.
Dumping debt, U.S. debt. And what are they buying with this? Because they're getting paid in U.S. dollars. So they're dumping the treasuries and buying gold. Going to be shoring up their financial system with gold.
That can't be bad. That's a good thing. That's still one of the advices that you give to our listeners, right? Buy gold. Well, actually, what's the gold news today?
Oh, it's up again, like around $40 an ounce. I mean, it's been on an upward trajectory ever since all the banks are being exposed. So this is going to keep going. And gold has always been the person's hedge against inflation. I give you an example of inflation or hyperinflation. In Argentina right now, year over year, their inflation is up 100%. So you imagine paying, $5 a gallon for gas, and now you're paying 10 a year later. I don't think the salaries will keep up as fast as the cost of living will.
It's not that much different here in Canada, is it? But let's stick to the China thing.
Just a question.
Yeah, what's up?
With the power shifting into the east, how does that affect us here in the west? Like, what kind of changes can we see in the near future?
What's going to happen is our dollar is going to lose power, significance in the world. So we're going to need more of our dollars to buy the same amount of goods that we used to buy from the other countries. So that's still going to be inflationary here. Even if they raise the interest rates, Canada is stuck. And it's going to show with the housing prices, for example. But to speak, you're from Honduras. And Honduras was one of I think there was only 15 or 16 countries that would have business ties with Taiwan. Well, they just clipped their business ties with Taiwan, and they're going to go with China now. So the world seems to be taking sides. And from what I see so far, the West is losing badly.
What I'm reading in the article is Honduran President how do you say it? Xiomara
Xiomara Castro.
Castro.
Yeah.
Any relation to Justin Trudeau?
Oh. No,
No,
I don't think they're the same Castro.
I don't know. They look like sisters.
Honduran President Xiomara Castro said the pivot aims to expand foreign engagement. Taiwan prompts caution Honduras against falling into China's trap. China has long tried to isolate Taiwan and prohibits its partners from keeping ties with the island, which is considered as part of its territory. Okay, so guys, do you venture to guess where the article, written from based on the language we just read?
BBC News.
Yeah,
News
that's right.
Broadcasting.
That's right. Check out Big Brain on Glenn. Ramon, can you comment on Xiomara Castro? What's her background and why is she important?
She's the president. It's the president, right?
Yeah, she's the president right now, the current president.
How progressive? Was she elected, duly elected?
No. She her husband was elected on 2006, if I'm not mistaken, and was taken out of power in 2008 because he wanted to make the presidential term longer, and he got the military got in the way and took him out of presidency. That bring Honduras a lot of problems because we were thrown from many international aids and help because our country was having a difficult time in that time because we didn't have a president for like a week or so. But she stands on a really left wing, and with all this Taiwan conflict is because past presidents. Well, Honduras has been Honduras has been a country that its biggest ally is the states. So whatever the states tell them what to be with or whom to be with, Honduras just copies it, and she's trying to shift that, but I don't think that's gonna favor us in any way. I honestly don't know what she's doing. Like,
The good thing for Honduras is there's a new boss in the United States of America. The resident of the White House right now, he's going to be castrated. He's done, and things are going to change. But you hear about everything happening in China. China is about to open its borders to tourists, the first time in 3 years since the scamdemic. Actually, I just read today that in America now they won't be testing travelers from China or Hong Kong to come over to the United States of America. So it looks like all the trouble is starting to subside. Finally.
Yeah, we'll get back to that subject in a little while. We have some topics to cover afterwards, but let's stay on the topic. Internationally, right? So alliances are changing everywhere, and people are spoken, right, with action. Actually, I don't know. It seems like the West is continued to decay and fall apart. Is there a reason why Macron increased the retirement age from 62 to 64 beside the things that we just talked about in the news?
All retirement plans are just Ponzi schemes. They only keep working as long as you have more people paying in than taking out. This is why now they want to keep the whole Ponzi scheme, the house of cards going longer, is by raising the age that you're entitled to your pension plan, retirement plan.
Isn't it also true that that's why we have such immigration plans in place in the Western world, because our own birth rates, due to our neoliberal policies, are down to the point where we cannot replenish our own society to our own population, that we have to bring an extra population via immigration, so they pay in taxes into pension funds and stuff like this, continue to drive the pension funds upwards.
All populations of every country shouldn't be measured by the quantity. It should be measured by the quality of their people and their ability to perform and produce. This is what gives a nation a strong middle class. So you eliminate that mindset of the uber rich and everybody else down here being poor.
But going back to the Ponzi scheme, and actually, uh, I'm proud of the French people. In France, they seem to revolt right away. They seem to revolt aggressive. I don't know if they get anything done because Macron is still there. Like how he continues to get reelected. I mean, does it prove once again that election mean nothing in the world?
Well, he passed this without even going in front of his parliament. So he's like a dictator. So now the people are joining together against the dictatorship. It's apparent that he's a dictator. First of all, his claim to fame was growing up and working in the Rothschild banking system. Then he married somebody like his grandmother.
That was his teacher. He was pedophile. He's on the other what do they call it? Spectrum of the pedophile scale.
The receiving end.
He's on the receiving end. Yes.
So he again, there was a loss of faith in the elections, like what's happening in many countries, even our own in Canada, especially in America. It's just becoming more awareness to the public that democracies have not been as democratic as they thought for a long time, and everything has been engineered.
Well, the Western democracy is a joke, isn't it? Like we continue to proclaim that we live in democratic countries, but there's very little of democracy left in this world. Continue to Europe. There's some more good news with the farmers protesting. Dutch farmers are getting their way in a very big way. Glenn, what do you know about that story? That's a good story.
Holland, or in other words, the small little country of Netherlands, have a very strong-willed people there. So the farmers now were protesting against the government's push down on their rights, and they closed down all the highway systems, and everybody else got involved too. Now you see in countries that the people are uniting against their governments. When the numbers get too big, then the people take back their authority, their power, and then the government has to fold like a $3 bill. They get exposed and they're worth nothing.
It's not just it wasn't just government overreach. It was the WEF thing, right? Where you'll have nothing and you'll enjoy it, and you'll eat some crickets versus beef and etc. The Triple B was established. That's the party. They just got 15 farmer citizen movement in Holland. It's called Triple B. I don't know how to pronounce it in Dutch, but they established in 2019 as a riposte to Prime Minister Mark Rutte's conservative VVD party. And what's so conservative about it? Which sought to fall in line with European Union regulations on nitrogen emissions by significantly decreasing livestock numbers and buying out thousands of farms. By the way, that's happening here in North America as well.
Yeah, they want to take the nitrogen, which increases the produce. They want to take that out of the farming, so then the farmers make a lot less or they go bankrupt. So they sell something that has a lot of value. They end up selling it for peanuts. And the offspring of the globalists buy this stuff up with the peanuts, especially with all the cheap money that's being printed. It always seems to work its way into their hands.
And they'll probably run some GMO grain on that, or GMO chickens or something like this, which is really cheap to produce, but who knows what long-term effect it has on us as humans and environment in general. I mean, we do know, like, for example, they did this in Ukraine, and it's like, oh, well, it's so good. It's just, it grows so easily. But do you know that most of the GMO products, it does not reproduce itself? So you buy a corn to put it in the ground in the spring. Next spring, you cannot use the same corn to put it in the ground. You have to buy it from them again, right? It does not. That's part of the design. So you continue to go back and pay them more money. It's richer getting richer.
And that corn, by the way, that GMO'd corn, it's horrible for people, okay? And it's horrible for the livestock. This is why people's health is one of the reasons why their health is diminishing, because of the corn byproducts and everything.
But look at all those people protesting and celebrating and getting together. And I think that's the thing that we got to remember, that those are the people that actually matter. It's not the politicians that's sitting in the cabinets and raising themselves salary, giving themselves bonuses, and cutting themselves working days. They have nothing to contribute to society. It's the farmers that wake up 5 o'clock in the morning and often work until late hours, produce the feed, produce the food, the feed, yes, produce the food for us and for the world in general. Like this is
that was similar to what was happening in Canada during the trucker protests. People had enough of this Trudeau totalitarian liberal government, and they expose. Now there's momentum. People want to take back. This is why they're not going to let that go, this Chinese interference in our elections, and Trudeau was all a part of that. I'm sure it adds a lot to his net personal wealth by doing these nefarious business dealings to stay in power.
But that's the Western democracy we're talking about, right?
Perception of a
perception
democracy.
of the Western democracy,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the Western democracy that they want to spread on to the rest of the world, like Ukraine and Russia and all other places. Mhm.
I believe also since 2019, Bill Gates has acquired, I believe you can fact check it, but it's between 10 or 15% of the US land, because he's also trying to get into that game of the food industry. And given Bill Gates' involvement in what all his involvements is getting, it preoccupies a lot of people, like he's getting into our food now.
Speaking about castration, it would be good for him to line up next. It would be better for the rest of humanity. That's it for you, bro, Bill.
Well, he has children. He has a daughter, right? Is it?
Yeah, I believe she just got married or just had a baby or something.
Yeah, it may not be real. I don't know. That might be just a front story. The other story in the news is that speaking of balance of power between West and East, Syria now talks with Russia about putting in permanent army bases in Syria, not just to fight terrorists. We all know the terrorists. Terrorist is not just this faceless organization that just came to be out of nowhere. It's just some people from the cave that really dissatisfied with the. No, we're well aware here that terrorist is a sponsored organization by somebody. Those are mercenaries. And oftentimes they're run by organizations like CIA and Mossad and whatever else. And
paid also from printed money. So North Americans, the middle class pays for that through inflation, which is like a hidden tax. And then this fiat currency goes to pay these militias, these mercenaries, to do dirty work in other countries. This is what we're paying for.
And that's where Mossad, not Mossad,
Assad?
President Bashar al-Assad, right? He says, okay, bring your army base in here as a counterbalance to the West, because nowadays in the world economy, it's hard. In the world, the economy, you need to stay sort of have your influence, but just the way Americans do. The way Americans put the influence with throughout different countries in forms of army bases and political influences, like you were talking about Honduras, Ramon. And so put a base here. You have access to Mediterranean. You're right in the Middle East. It's a good location for you. So here's a point. And some people say, "Well, how dare you?" Well, it's a good counterbalance. It's one army base outside of Russia versus how many hundreds of army bases U.S. has throughout the world. And on top of that, Russia, we do have a conflict between Russia and Ukraine here, and we can't get to the bottom how it started again. Like we beat that horse to death, and I think most of you who listen to the show now aware this is not This is not a issue between Russia and Ukraine. It's a global issue. And again, it's going back to laundering money. But we have the UN Commission that investigates Russians' genocide in Ukraine, and it failed to find anything. That don't take my word from me. Don't take my word for it. It's Yahoo News, so it's got to be true.
That's after the West was accusing Russia of war crimes in Ukraine.
In Bucha specifically, right? The town of Bucha, where it was all staged, and then it was so terrible, and then they had all those Western delegations going there for photo ops, taking pictures with the atrocities that the Russians committed.
It has been said that the first casualty of war is the truth. And we see lies flying everywhere now to push the agendas, to push the narrative, to try and get the people on their side, to try and send more missiles and ammunitions over to Ukraine. That's not what we should be doing, because people are dying for nothing. This is a banker war. All wars are banker wars, and there's a war against the people by the bankers too. So what's going on both fronts?
Speaking of sending ammunition to Ukraine, Canada to send ammunition missiles to support Ukraine's air defense. Well, we don't really know what they're sending, do they? They say they send one thing, but there's no checks and balances. We know that for a fact. Like, whatever the government says, we cannot be trusted anymore, right? It's because it's safe and effective.
And it tries to cover everything up. Same thing is going on with the Chinese interference in the election. Here you have the leader of the party, the Liberal Party of Canada, the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, doesn't want to do what the people want. The people want a public inquiry. They want to know the truth, what's really going on, because they've lost faith in the government's ability to be able to tell them the truth. So their perception of reality is starting to change. Maybe they're learning to discern, a popular word that we use on this show.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Liberal government, one of Ukraine's most vocal international supporters, has committed over $1 billion in military aid to Kiev since the start of the Russian invasion last year. Yeah, Canadians are for peace. Justin, let me ask you, how does it work? Here, you doing all these gun registers, trying to take away guns, even from the hunters, just from your own citizens, because guns are bad. There, we send tanks and ammunition for tanks and air defenses, because those weapons are not for killing people, right? What is it for? And also, it's $1 billion worth of military aid. We have an infrastructure here so dilapidated, and not just in Canada, but in North America in general. Everything's falling apart. Everything. We have extra money to get involved in some foreign wars that we have no business being in. And again, if you're going to say, oh, it's here to protect our Western values, and we're here to protect the Western democracy, the way of Western democracy, we proved it on and on in this show. And you don't have to take our word for it. Go and just Google it, search it on the internet. Most corrupt country in the world, money laundering, all of you. By the way, guys, what do you think about this? You know how all those politicians went to visit Ukraine? You know, Boris went like 5 times, Pelosi, Biden, Macron, the German guy, and then the president of European Union, what's her name? The woman, van der Leyen, or whatever her name is, right? So they all went, and there was a huge entourage with them. They all have suitcases. How do you think they, imagine, okay, I'm not carrying my own suitcase, but I have 10 guys behind me. Those suitcases are full of dollar bills or whatever, or European currency. I'm telling you, this is the only way it works. Why else would you go there? Is it, okay, it's a good photo op, but also that's the sure way to take the money out of the country. You don't think that's a good way?
You can bet it's not their lunchbox. That's for sure.
Well, especially when we say cash is king, right? Untraceable. Take it and then you can distribute it anywhere you want. So that's definitely the key. Like that, the lady we talked about, the wife of the MP, Ukrainian MP, was just taking out $400 million just in her suitcases. A lot of suitcases.
Rich chick on the run.
Here in Canada, though, right? 40% in February compared with years ago. Home sales drop, and they drop for a reason, Glenn. Well, because consumers do not have confidence, right? And like we don't. Would you buy a house right now?
No. And not only that, but the cost to carry a house, like the mortgage, the interest, it's all raising where the salaries are not going up as fast enough. So that's eating away at people's disposable income. So that's what's going to dry up a consuming economy. The average house price in Canada has already gone down between 15 and 19%, depending on who you listen to. But they're unanimous in saying that it's not the bottom. And just in this year alone, 2023, it should drop another 10%. That's if everything keeps going the way things are going now. What happens when things get worse? Which I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optimistic realist. But the realist inside of me says things are going to get a lot worse.
How do real estate agents stay in the business? Because all those people that bought houses, I'm sure they heard from the real estate agents like, oh, this is the, we live in a good market. Look at last year, the value of houses went up 10, 15% without, they don't really calculate in inflation or anything else. And nobody was looking at the bubble. Do you blame the people for making their own mistakes, for buying the properties? Whoever bought houses in the last 2 years, they screwed, aren't they?
Well, you don't see an institution, a bank, a money lender, a real estate agent putting a gun to somebody's head and saying, you have to buy that house. So people do bad errors, financial errors in their life or wrong timing events, and they try to blame everybody else when they should look at who made the decision. They did. It was a bad decision, and it's going to have a bad outcome. That's it. That's all. It's very simple.
And then we'll look at the story like this, where, I know you're sick of looking at the stories like this. Industrial train derails in Arizona. I know it's an American news. It's not really Canadian news. It doesn't relate to a story we're talking about. But it shows, again, U.S. sent $100 billion or more at this point. More to Ukraine specifically, and who knows where else they send the money. But they have stories like this all the time where things derail with hazardous materials and pollute the ground. It doesn't even matter. Like the fact that the infrastructure again shows it's dilapidated. You can send $5 billion, spend the $95 billion on infrastructure. What's going on, Glenn? Like this is they really lost all the moral value, all the.
Well, this is what happens when you have the world reserve currency. The rest of the world wants it because it has value compared to their currency, usually. So they were printing money and sending it all around the world and denying the money and spending in their own country. So this is why their infrastructure is all broken up, and we're hearing about all these train derailments and bridges breaking down and falling down, and it's nonstop. But they send money to other countries, and they use the other countries' resources to build back up what all our bombs ruined and destroyed. But time is ruining our infrastructure in the West. There's going to be nobody to come and help us out. We have to help ourselves out.
We're also in the financial ruin. I don't know if you guys walked around your city in the West, any city in the West, I bet. But here in Montreal, you work on main strips like Sainte-Catherine, Saint-Laurent, Saint-Denis. They always been the staple of hustle and bustling economy, right? There's all those shops, all those restaurants, all those coffee shops. You go, sometimes there's blocks of empty, not a store or two, a whole block of empty storefronts, a whole block, a whole bunch of graffiti on it. Well, considered to be art nowadays, but it's empty. And I'm sure some of those store owners could have used some of that $1 billion to maintain their business above ground. But how does it benefit the politician? He can't get a kickback from the store owner, but he can get a kickback from Ukrainian store owner / politician.
Yeah, it's a bigger kickback. And then all those empty stores. What are in front of all these empty stores? Homeless people, people with massive mental problems, taking drugs, alcohol, throwing their life away, no reason to live anymore. And we send money to other countries, but we don't stop the cancer contagion from spreading in our own country.
Proves once again that politicians, they are not your representatives. They represent interests of other people that don't even reside in this country, the foreign interest. WF is one of them, right?
WEF, the
Yeah.
World Economic Farce.
Far.
It's being exposed. Klaus Schwab, you're done.
China too, but let's what's up, Ramon? You had something to say?
No, I was the Oscars passed recently, so I was still waiting on Zelensky's nomination for the award
For
for an Oscar for the good acting that he has been
okay.
portraying.
Biggest ham award.
Ramon, not bad. Where do you get those jokes?
They're pretty funny
They're
from
pretty-
Honduras, aren't they?
Yeah. So the let's see what Pierre Poilievre has
Probably
to say.
the next leader of Canada.
Let's see what he has to say. Just a second.
I think Justin Trudeau has inspired a lot of suspicion by his refusal to, one, answer questions about his knowledge of Beijing's interference to help him in two successive elections. Leaked CSIS and PCO documents now show that Beijing worked to help elect Justin Trudeau. That is an accepted fact. He doesn't even deny it. But he kept it hidden until courageous whistleblowers at CSIS released it for him. And now he refuses a public inquiry. I think Canadians of all political backgrounds are asking, what has Justin Trudeau got to hide? And furthermore, why hasn't he protected Chinese Canadians? Here in British Columbia, we know that Chinese Canadians came under intimidation by the People's Republic of China government. They were threatened. There were times when conservative candidates would knock on a door and the person answering it would say, can we go into the backyard and leave our phones behind so that we can talk without being surveilled by the regime in Beijing? I think it is disgraceful that the Prime Minister knew this and did absolutely nothing. He kept it covered up, and to this day will not even tell us how much money the Liberal Party got in donations that were funneled, clandestine donations, to his party. So if we want to restore faith in our democracy, we have to answer the questions and bring in transparency so Canadians know what happened and we get direct action to make sure it never happens again. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. I think Justin Trudeau.
My brothers, you smell it? Can you smell it? I think the Trudeau turkey is cooked.
But you think that, right? Like we always think that. People didn't think Biden's going to get elected because he had all kinds of issues around him, medical, mental, political issues, and he won. Trudeau gets reelected. Now we can go into legitimacy of Western elections because we have a democracy here. Glenn, you seem to have faith that those people are done and that the system not so far gone and that it's not so corrupt that we actually have. Well, I guess Dutch give us some hope with the election there with the 15 members into parliament. What do you think?
I have faith in the top 20% of the people who are spreading the awareness level. Because 20% of the people, good people, will create 80% of the necessary change. This is why I'm happy. It's not just Trudeau. In 2022, there was an election for the mayor of Vancouver. Now, CSIS is also saying that the mayor of Vancouver was taking money. In other words, he was elected by the Chinese community for a specific purpose. And we know there's a huge Asian community in Vancouver, which is the reason why the house prices got out of hand, because they had to get their money out of their countries and launder it over here in Canada. Canada has very strict money laundering laws, amongst the strictest in the world, but we just don't enforce it. So it's do as I say, not as I do. It's a shell game. Okay, look under this one. Oh, it wasn't there. Look over there. Oh, it wasn't there. Oh, I own this. Oh, where'd the money come from? Oh, it came from that offshore place that was owned by this business that was owned by there. It's all fiat currency making its way around the system, turning it into tangible wealth like real estate, gold, silver, precious art, old cars, things that are going to hold their value in a blow up of the currency times.
Do you think that this is like a chess game that has been playing through like Russia and China, like slowly trying to get into? Because it's funny how, like, the way I see it, like, out of nowhere, the West has always dominated for the time that I've been knowing, and now out of nowhere, it looks like it's out of pieces and doesn't know how
It-
to react.
Exactly, except the chess game is a two-dimensional game. This is like a three-dimensional game. It's like a block.
Or
It's
you're geeking out on me, right? Star Trek, is that what you do?
no, just this is a big. I mean, this is not simple chess. This is chess on a 3D level. Something that Mr. Trump was very good at playing. Okay, he was put there for fixing the bankruptcy of the United States of America. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's ongoing. So we're going to be going into the new system.
I don't know. I don't have the same trust with in Trump as you do. I don't. I think he's also part of the chess. Like he's one of the. Oh, he's the savior. He's the savior. And then what happened? He said when he got elected, he promised us Hillary, right, to be burned at the stake. That didn't happen.
I believe he played a lot into speaking out loud, like just to bring a lot of attention to him. But I do believe that a lot of his work was really good. Like, let's say the economy of the States was in the best position in years throughout his short term, like 4 years. And you see, right after Biden got into election, everything came crashing down. As he said, like in the election process, he was saying if Biden is elected, like the stocks, everything is going down, and that's what happened.
And there were no wars when Biden was there. It was, I mean, when Trump was there. Biden is there
The
now.
Well,
that's
they
all
had
there
one.
is.
They had they attacked Syria. Okay.
It's a
Yep.
peaceful. The Trump's term was the peacefulest term that the states has been in years.
And there was was very little fiat currency, American dollars, going around the world financing wars and troubles in other country. All that was starting to come back, along with the jobs, as they wanted to bring back their manufacturing that was outsourced by globalism. You were selling out the middle class jobs in America, and you were enriching other nations who pay their workers very poorly compared to America. Anyways, this is all reversing, especially now with the blowing up of the U.S. dollar. It's going to be worth less and less. A lot of countries in the world, they want to get rid of their dollars or their treasuries, and all that is going to come back and create even more hyperinflation. So how are the banks going to get out of this one? When you look at the three-dimensional chess game that's playing right now, you get a better idea of what's going on. And it's going to end, or not end, but transition to a very rough time for the people in the West who are not used to anything rough. So you're going to get a lot of the narcissist mentality in the West. Their true character is going to be exposed, and they're going to turn into nihilists, defeatists, Mr. Pessimist, negative. And that's how you're going to learn about a person's true character. Or you'll see other people, like you sitting in front of me right here, who have the resolve to go ahead no matter what. Take life's challenges right on the nose and forge ahead and get up. Because life, it's true what they said in the Rocky movie, life can beat you down. But you get knocked down 14 times, the one who wins is the one who gets up 15 times. He never gives up. You never give up until you win.
Yeah.
Well, I believe we are winning. We are winning for sure. And now all the information that we talked about for past 3 years are now becoming self-evident based on the information that is just out there. It's not. It's no longer. You cannot no longer be claimed to be claimed conspirator or misinformation agent or Russian bot because we're all exposed to this information. So, for example, we all knew that children needs to develop the immunities, and they were the least in danger out of all the all the COVID fear associated with. But we also put them through hell. We put masks on them. We kept them from school. We kept them from playgrounds here in Canada specifically. But apparently, children's immunity to COVID-19 provided by common colds, right here in the medical life science news.
Let your children get sick once in a while. Stop rushing them off to the pediatrician to give them antibiotics for every little thing. You know, when you have a baby, give it a little bit of peanut butter. So not, at the age of 6, 7 years old, your kid eats a peanut and his head swells up to a grape, a big balloon. Let's let kids be kids again, and let's turn the men child back into men.
Isn't it too late?
No, tough times will come, and they're going to have to change. It's inevitable. Either you change or you perish. Okay, that's like nature.
What about this news, which we also knew? Primary and booster vaccines against SARS-CoV-2 lose effectiveness quickly. And I don't have this article now, but you did see Fauci claiming that, you would need a booster indefinitely because, COVID is here to stay, just like a flu or whatever.
Why would you risk taking 5 shots for something that has a 99.98% recovery rate? And personally, I believe the recovery rate would even be higher if it wasn't for the shots. Because a lot of the shots are what's hurting people's immune systems.
In the first place, right?
Exactly.
Well, China has an intricate, place in this whole story. They just now opened up their borders to the tourists for the first time in 3 years. And, they still require some kind of testing. I don't know if you need papers to see if you if you vaccinated or not, but they definitely... Glenn, do you want to go see China?
Not really, but I wouldn't mind going to the United States of America.
You can't go just yet. You need, you need the papers. We cannot ask you about your own personal medical history here, can we? No, we can't. That's your own liberty.
I'm healthy as hell, big guy.
I know. That's right.
Okay.
What else is in news? We're running way too long today. Let's go. Let's do this story. That's going back to our medical system. So instead of, like you were talking about, healthcare system, it's not a healthcare system. What do you call it?
If you're in the hospital chronically, then it's sick. You're sick. You're not healthy. So it should be called sick care. So it's the sick care industry. Now, when people are past being sick and now they're in pain, their life is discomfort and misery, they should be able to decide whether they want to be a part of this life anymore or not. So we're humane to animals. You have a dog and he's past his prime and you see that he's in pain. So you put your dog to sleep gently and quietly. You don't want to see the animal suffer. So we're humane to animals, but we're inhumane to humans. We allow people to suffer and not even be aware of it for the sole purpose as to enrich the sick care system and the pharmacists, the pharmacology, and they just make money off of this ongoing problem.
My issue with that is that why is that a system like this in place in the first place? Like why is the medical system focusing on prolonging the suffering and as well as finding the way to kill a person? Present them with a choice. Okay, you hear it, but in Canada we hear a lot of anecdotal stories where like army veterans would call and like, I'm having some issues, like I can't, I get an appointment with a specialist and all this other stuff. And the person on the other line of of the phone will ask him, "Oh, I'm so sorry about your inconvenience. We have another option for you. Do you want to die?" Right? That's instead of finding solutions within a medical system and creating an adequate medical system for our citizens, for for the people of this country, we're coming up with solutions. How can we kill them faster? And that's how, like, the pandemic was one of those solutions. The Georgia Guidestones won't line at all. When they were talking about population control and minimizing the population to 500 million.
A little side story. My grandmother was 101 years old. She was living on her own. And she had some health problems near the end. And she went to the hospital. And the hospital said, well, we're going to have to put you in a chronic care facility. You're getting closer to the last days of your life. She walked out of the hospital. She says, no, I'm going back to my home to pass. I'm going to call you when I'm ready to go. You come and put me down. Just like that. I received a picture of her the day before. This was a Sunday. It was a sunny afternoon when the picture was taken. She was sitting in her favorite chair in the sun with a big smile on her face, knowing that the next day they were coming down to put her down, asleep. But she said to me, she says, no, I have had a great life. I don't want to go out in misery and pain and be a burden to society. I'm ready to go. I had a great life and it was amazing, but it's time for this ride to go. And that was it. And up until like three months before that, I would have conversations with my grandmother about Trudeau. Oh, she hated him. And by the way, on the Jordan Peterson video, when he always cries, and I had said, suck it up, Buttercup, I got that expression from a 101-year-old grandmother. She was the one who were saying that a lot of the young people today are going to have to learn to suck it up because life has been too easy for too long. It came from her. And then you had some people texting into you saying that, that wasn't nice and, men are allowed to cry. And it was men who were saying that. And yet my grandmother, a 101-year-old woman, had the intestinal fortitude to say it like it was, to say it like it is, and should always be.
I was reading also an article that history repeats itself, and this same problem of lack of masculinity and everything, I believe, was happening in the Roman Empire. It got to a point where they were the lack of masculinity. We all know that the Roman Empire eventually failed, so we will probably be facing the same history events. Like,
the West is not going to fail, not as long as there's men like us still there. Okay, we're here and we're going to raise the awareness level. Come on, boys, time to get up to the game. Let's go, man up.
I think the world isn't going to fail, although I am weary of that reset thing. So there's few things about reset. If you remember, as part of the Matrix, you guys seen the movie Matrix, reset was part of that story, right? And that's when people got closer to finding out the true story. That's when everything got reset on both ends. So let's say if you believe and you understand the structure, let's say if we do live in the Matrix now, and you recognize the fact that we live on a flat earth, for example, and back in the day, 10, 20, 30 years ago, you as an ordinary citizen, you did not have a person, you did not have a technology for yourself to figure it out. You couldn't. Now we could put a balloon for hundreds of dollars up in the air with some GPS devices in it, with some cameras and some solar panels, and you can actually broadcast and see what's beyond the ice wall, so to speak, right? And we're getting closer to the answers. So I believe reset is a valid option for whoever's trying to be in charge with doing things like nuclear wars and World War IIIs and pandemics and other things and whatever means necessary for them. Earthquakes, like Turkey is a good example, right? Tsunamis, whatever. So maybe not so far-fetched. So be wary. But I still believe the good is winning, and we are going to win, and we're going to find that balance. It's not just for the men in the West. I think for the men in the world. we're going to find that balance. Funny story in the news. We got to move on here. Chat GPT, right, just got sued, right? You are going to be replaced, no matter how valuable you think you are to the society. No matter how licensed you think you are. Those lawyers just sued Do Not Pay app. It's called a robot lawyer. This guy, where is he from? He created an app to help you go to court. And now he do not pay claims to use artificial intelligence, ChatGPT or whatever, to help customers handle an array of legal services without needing a hire lawyer, which could be expensive. It was founded in 2015 in an app to help customers fight parking tickets, but has since expanded its services. Do Not Pay website claims that it can help customers fight corporations, beat bureaucracy, find hidden money, and sue anyone. So obviously the lawyers didn't like that because now they're getting cut out of the equation, and you're going to be replaced, Glenn, right? Like the AI will replace you eventually.
There could be a lot of changes going on. It's going to affect accountants, like you just saw, lawyers, certain doctors, nurses for triage, for example, all the travel industry, the what's it called?
Programming, all the entertainment industry, anything to do with script writing, anything,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, go ahead.
I do believe that like artificial intelligence is not gonna like it might replace jobs, but it what will happen is just a job shifting. Like let's go back a couple of years ago, like when you were trying to make a phone call, there was an operator who plugged in your call to
That wasn't a couple of years ago, like a couple of centuries ago.
well, a couple of centuries ago, and that was a job that is no longer a job now. So with artificial intelligence, there's gonna be a job shifting, of course, in various fields, and it's gonna impact. But we've started seeing this ever since we got access to internet, because things go so fast now. Like every year, there's some new developments that 20x whatever was the last development. So I do believe, like, yeah, we're getting to a point of like we're progressing faster than we were before. But that just means that as humans, we need to prepare ourselves to be able to expand as most as we can. Like, I do believe there's ways that lawyers and accountants can still benefit from using AI. Meanwhile, they prepare for the next shift or something like that. Because I believe still AI is more just of a tool that a threat right now. Like, it could get to a threat, but I believe by now it's more of a tool that people need to understand how to
Ramon,
use it.
did you always see Terminator?
Yeah.
Yeah. So watch it again. You missed some points.
It's going to also affect the transport industry. Like it's like 30% of all the jobs. That's the word I was looking for before.
Well, that's the point. How are we going to replace that? What are we going to replace? Ramon, you make a good point, but what are you going to replace this job with which job?
Because the thing is, like, as everything, probably AI by itself gets smarter, but you still need coders behind it to.
No, but that's the point. Now it writes its own code.
Yep.
So I just read an article this morning. Read an article this morning. This guy asked AI to, I have $100 to invest. Can you help me? AI did a quick search and came up with some kind of bio-green product of some sort. And it gave them, it created a website, it built the website, built the logo, everything, $100 investment. And then by the end of the day, within 24 hours, his company was worth 25 grand. Right? And that's just a simple example. Like, now it just cut out the programmer, cut out the web design guy, the logo design guy, a business consultant, and everything else. It just cut out all those 5 jobs right away. Gone.
And that's even the physical jobs.
Yes.
I saw what is it, Boston Dynamics. They have a robot now that can put gyprock. install gyprock on the walls, measure everything, and
Well, 20 years ago, they had Toyota was building plants in like Virginia, and they had to put in human jobs in there for tax purposes to provide jobs for the like a local community or whatever. It was already 20 years ago. The Toyota plant was 100% automated. They didn't need one single person to build a car 20 years ago. Imagine to what level are robotics now. So no, you're right. We're going into sort of renaissance where we're becoming more artists because of that. I believe you're right. Instead of thinking about shifting jobs, now if we have this infrastructure, instead of sending $100 billion to Ukraine to blow up more bombs and to kill people, imagine investing into infrastructure where you are supported by AIs and robots, and maybe hoping that it's not going to turn into Matrix / Terminator world. But then your citizens get to study more things, maybe become better microbiologists and understanding how things work. We seem to have trouble with that. We can't define a woman right now. Like maybe we should send big people back to school in some ways. Although probably the worst place where you're going to learn what a woman is in school. Speaking of women, tell me about that story.
Eleanor Williams, the lasting impact of fake rape claims. In other words, she faked a rape by several men. So the way the system works today is we're guilty and we have to prove ourselves innocent. So she affected these guys' lives. And some of them were even looking to take their own lives because they were ostracized in the community. People believed this girl right away, even to the point where some people will do anything for attention. She even used a hammer on her own face. She took painkillers and didn't know what day it was and smacked her own face with a hammer to look like she was beaten up. Now, where's the Me Too movement on behalf of those guys? Because I'm sure this happens more often than not. Now, the problem, the conundrum, the real problem with this is some girls who are really raped are going to be afraid to come out with the story in case they find out or it's proven that it's not true when it really was. Okay, so there's two sides to this. A real man wouldn't do that to a woman. An idiot does that. Okay? It's the same thing in Florida. There's another girl who went and bought rope, actually, and she pulled over on the highway, and she said that she was raped and that they tied her hands and her feet. She actually bought the rope and tied her own hands and feet, and it was all fake just to get notification. Oh, look at me, now I'm a somebody. I mean, these people should do the same amount of time as a person convicted of the actual thing. So then that way we'll get to a reality. Here you have pedophiles in the United States of America. They get convicted, they do their time, and they come back out on the street. Pedophiles never get better. They only get quiet for a little while and then strike again at the opportune moment. Here's a father in the United States of America who watched this pedophile now following his own little daughter. And he was on him for a long time just to make sure. Finally, what he did was he snapped. He confronted the pedophile, beat the hell out of him, and used a moose antler to actually stab him to death to protect his daughter or somebody else's daughter. Okay? Now this guy is going to go away. The pedophile got out. Now he's dead. But this guy's going to go away. You have a daughter. How would you like that happening to you, big guy? Would you put yourself in a different position than this man?
Tough. Yeah, it's the emotional impulse. You probably would act the same way to protect your daughter if that happens. I think the reason why he may have went to jail because it seems to be premeditative because he knew he was aware of this going on for a while. And the question that you want to ask here, why the justice system failed in the first place, and why did it have to come down to this? That's the question you're asking, because it's really hard to get into a person's mind and to figure out what's going there when he gets to. I tell the truth, Glenn, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do
No, you
in
see,
that case.
what happens is a lot of people feel sorry for the pedophile. Oh yeah, but that didn't happen to your child. Okay, as long as it's somebody else's kid. But when it happens to your own, then you're going to say death penalty. Do we have to put our children out there like that in danger for a few nutcases that are never going to get better?
Speaking of fake sexual assaults, Andrew Tate may be out, and his brother, because they were imprisoned for 2.5 months now with no conviction. with no
Again,
evidence.
you're guilty until they try and, you have to prove yourself innocent. These guys were innocent the whole time, and the prosecutors were trying to find something that they convict them of to make them guilty of. 2.5 months of your life is gone. You're in a prison for something that you never did. You haven't even been charged. You call that a democratic judicial system?
I don't know. Well, that's the point. We pretend to live in the democracy, and that's the democracy. This is corrupt, just as like anything else. So every time people wake up in the morning, he's like, "Well, we live in a better country with better values and all that stuff." No, you don't. People get corrupted, and with this whole new, not new, but WEF, and by the way, the globalism is dead officially with all the things that happened in the last 3 years. Look what happened. We got the pandemic thing going on. It destroyed the globalism. Every country separated, segregated, closed their borders right away. It's like, no, you're not coming here. So all those things are done to divide us, brothers and sisters. This show was not done to divide us. It's just to bring attention to all the points that divide us. Let's find the common ground. That's why I refer to you, brothers and sisters. We own one big family. And if we focus on things that make us different, makes us different, we will not focus on things that make us the same. And we want the same. We want love, we want peace, we want kindness, we want roof over our heads, we want stability, we want families. But I don't know any person, myself personally, that normal person that wants to go out there and harm somebody. So let's focus on love. Let's focus on kindness. Let's focus on being righteous. Stay righteous, brothers and sisters. We'll see you on the next one.